What's up? We are here today to talk about, well, I am here. You're here listening, but we are talking because I'm conversing with you and I want you to feel like you are in a space where you can also share some of your experiences when it comes to this because rebuilding after 40 is a whole feat in and of itself. And you may think that rebuilding feels empowering, but let's be honest, it can be filled with ego, it can be filled with desperation, it can be filled with fear. But along the way, what I can promise you is that it will be filled with alignment. I have had to rebuild more than once, and every time it looked completely differently. And it also taught me something new in every season about who I am and where I'm going next. And so I'm going to be sharing those seasons of rebuilding with you and the lessons that I learned so that whether you are younger than 40 or you're starting to rebuild for the first time and it feels very overwhelming and scattered over 40, well, I got you because it is a very odd thing. So, first and foremost, my name is Brianna. If you don't know me, I am a licensed clinical um, psychotherapist, and I've been in the field for over 20 years, but I'm also a multifaceted mentor working with 6 and 7 figure CEOs and entrepreneurs to help them bridge the gap between their professional success and their personal success. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm a dog foster mama. And I am really excited to be sharing my experience and my knowledge. So I'm going to lower this camera a little bit. So if you're starting over, if you're rebuilding in your 40s and you feel behind, if it feels messy, if it feels confusing, if it feels angering, I want you to know that you're not alone and this is for you. So, post divorce, I was 35 when I got divorced and started my life over again. And in this stage of my life, I was still trying to prove something. Um, the move all by myself was trying to prove something. Starting a career over was trying to prove something. Living alone, and not having people come and visit me was trying to prove something. I was hyper focused. I was productivity led, and I was really avoiding a lot of the internal healing that I needed that my divorce ripped open inside of me. And so I wasn't just rebuilding in that first season. I was trying to prove that I was going to be okay in a new life without all of the, I don't know, boundaries around what I thought my life would look like. And what happened was, when you live a life backed by ego and pride, you're ultimately going to fall flat on your face. There's no way that you can't. And there's a level of immaturity that lives in that. There's a level of emotional immaturity that lives in that. There's a level of um selfish survival behaviors where you're just trying to get to that next thing that impacts you. And so I was trying to not fail anymore. And so in this rebuilding season, you have to think about it like, if I am rebuilding off of not trying to fail, then everything I'm focused on is being afraid of failure. When, of course, failure is normal and failure is healthy. We need it in order to grow. It gives us information. So I had confused this reinvention of Brianna 2.0 post divorce with productivity, improving herself. And so I really didn't get the healing that I needed in that first year and a half, 2 years. And that was really powerful for me because it obviously had me making choices out of that survival. And I hurt myself a lot because of it. But what's really cool is the rebuilding started to shift the closer I got to 40. And when I hit 40, something changed. And the rebuilding that I had was both pressured but easy. And what happened was there was a part of me that felt like time was running out. I was still single. I didn't have any kids. I had this career that was starting to slow down and I was struggling with. And I I felt behind in a lot of ways. But the flip side of that was I also truly started to enjoy being by myself. When I got divorced up until about 41 ish, like I needed to be out on the streets. I wanted to be seen. I wanted to be flirted with. I wanted to feel important. I wanted to, get attention. And I that was all because of this still kind of broken heart posture where I was trying to fill a a hole inside of me with something from somebody else that I really needed to get from myself and from God. And so I was constantly looking for stimulation when I was out, or I would be completely avoidant and stay home and stay in. And so that season was a little bit teetering because parts of it were healthy. I started to enjoy being alone, but I also felt like time was running out, like I wanted to be in a relationship, but then I also thoroughly enjoyed like being um uh in charge of my own volition when it came to my like day and my schedule and stuff. So I told myself at this stage of life that I was really living, but if I'm being honest, I was still chasing the things that I was afraid I would never get. And I didn't believe that I would get them. And so I wasn't reckless, but I was feeling ashamed. I wasn't like doing things in urgency, but I was still making choices based out of fear. And so I thought that if I could, fill these gaps with my person and with the white picket fence idea of what I wanted and like feeling in complete alignment with my career, that I would feel better. And that's not the case. Um, i i realized that my value is way bigger than checking all of these boxes. And so I feel like when we're reinventing ourselves, especially as women, we place a lot of value on what that looks like what people are seeing from us and how people are perceiving us in that, start over process. And so that is the piece of like what I want to really acknowledge and encourage you, no matter what part of the process you're in, because um, the reality is that reinvention is like not pretty at all. It is not pretty. I mean, there were times when I was a ball of mush on the floor crying, feeling like, what is the point of all of this? Throwing a pity party for myself and, just like, this isn't fair. Like, I'm such a good person. I follow all the rules. I do the right thing. And then on top of that, there were insecurities around what's wrong with me? Like, why doesn't anybody want to be with me? Why can't I get this job off the thing? Like, I say I'm an entrepreneur. I say I'm a business owner. I say that I'm my own boss, and yet I can't do anything right. I had to fire my, onboarding staff. I had to, um, you know, I had to create a whole new business because the one I had wasn't working. And then here I am, doing therapy again, which isn't what I wanted to be doing. So, it is um it's a hard, ugly, yucky place to be. And what's ironic is I feel overall I'm my most confident I've ever been compared to my 30s and my 40s. Like, I don't take people's crap. I set boundaries right away. I don't think I'm rigid per se, but I don't deal with the BS. Like, I call things out when I see them, and it is what it is. I mean, I'm nice when I do it, but I'm at this place where I'm old enough to see my value and my worth. And so these things that like I used to get so disappointed and upset about, I recognize were all tied to that. They were all tied to a belief system that I have about myself. And so the biggest thing that I had to let go of when it came to being this age and where I was at is that like I was supposed to have it all figured out, and everything that was figure outable was attached to who I am, like my worthiness, my enoughness, my importance, my level of acceptance. And so I had to really let go of that because I knew that figuring it out didn't change my value. And so I started to recognize how much wisdom I was gleaning in these experiences where I was starting to change patterns, where I was starting to be okay with where I was at because I knew it wasn't where I was going to finish. And I was really living by faith. And I was, developing healthy relationships, and I was cutting other relationships out and saying yes to things that were going to help me evolve and saying no to things that weren't healthy for me. And there was a lot of like give and take with that, right? And so, again, here's another reinvention. Now I'm a wife, now I'm a stepmom, now I'm back in a career that I necessarily don't want to be in while I'm trying to develop the framework for the next steps of where I'm going. But I'm moving at a slower pace. Like I don't feel rushed and I don't feel pressured and I don't feel like any of what I'm doing, quote unquote, wrong or where I haven't gotten to yet is a reflection of me. This is where it's so important for you, no matter what age you are, but specifically for the ladies who are 40 and up, who are having to reinvent themselves and are starting over at some capacity, that you cannot rebuild from ego. That is not a stable foundation and it will not uphold you in the times that you need it most. You cannot um, rebuild from survival because survival is pressured and survival comes with pain and anxieties. And again, that's not going to give you a stable foundation. You have to rebuild from alignment, and alignment takes time. So, making peace with the idea that you should be somewhere by a certain age, so now you feel like you don't have enough time, is going to lead you into ego, into survival, into panic, and you will not make aligned decisions. I encourage you to move slow and act with integrity to who you are and innately what is intuitively calling you, because these are less frantic. They're also you not having to prove yourself. They are more grounded, which means you are making choices from a sense of safety and a sense of peace, just like I talked about yesterday. And there really is no timeline. There isn't. That timeline is cultural, it's societal, it is given to you from your family, from your parents. Your timeline is your timeline. And coming from somebody who has gone through as much as I have, what I have come to accept is there is a reason why it hasn't come yet, and there's a reason why it's already passed. So whether that's to develop my character, to increase my wisdom, to check my level of integrity, it doesn't matter, because we have to let go of the rule that we should be somewhere by now and start to embrace the fact that the more aligned we are, the better this next phase of our life is going to be anyway. Why did you get divorced? Because you weren't in alignment, boo. You were not in alignment. Whatever happened in there, you weren't in alignment. Why did that career end? Because you weren't in alignment. Why are you struggling financially? Because you're not in alignment with your money. Like, it's all has to do with alignment. So the moment that you are able to break the rules around why something needs to look a certain way by a certain time and just focus on what do I need to do in order to get into alignment, this reinvention season is going to be different from any other that you've experienced in the past. Okay. So I want to remind you, right, that there is a fantasy that you may have about what reinvention looks like. Okay. That reinvention is going to fix everything. That reinvention will allow you to not feel pain or look back at the past and wish things went differently. Reinvention does not equal freedom. Reinvention does not eliminate suffering. Reinvention is not glamour, or reinvention does not have a glamorous look to it. Okay. Reinvention is the opportunity for you to grow through what you go through. Okay. And that's quotable. I don't know who I stole that from, but it does. It helps you grow through what you go through. So instead of focusing on what something looks like, I want to encourage you to focus on, again, what your experience of everything is. Or do you have high expectations? Are you putting up walls and barriers and not allowing anybody in? Are you inflexible and lacking creativity to what's possible for you when it comes to your career? All of those things are sabotaging behaviors. I see so many women my age and older that have gone through a loss and they shrink, they respond out of fear. They're waiting for permission. They won't take risks and they're overthinking every move because there's this idea that, well, because I'm older, I have to be careful of what happened. No, that's not living. That is surviving. And you were not put on this earth to survive. You were put on this earth to live and to create a path for other women to walk in the permission that they need. You're your own permission slip and you're going to give permission to other women. Okay. So it's interesting because when I, was going through each of my, big seasons of transition, there was one mindset within myself that kept me stable and able to run through this, which is I refuse to believe that this is it. I refuse to believe that there are no men that exist in the world that are respectful and loving and kind and honest. I refuse to believe that I would work a job for the rest of my life that I am not lit up by. I refuse to believe that I'm going to live in debt and struggle financially. I refuse to believe that I will only have one or two friends that aren't near me that I have to work really hard to keep and create. Like, I have had so much grit and tenacity to keep pushing towards the things that I believe in and that I want, that I will not quit. And that mindset kept me stable because even in the times when I was on the floor feeling like, why is this happening to me? I would still pick myself up and keep going. Like, I had to keep going. And a part of what grounded me in having that mindset were my daily habits: reading the Bible, journaling, praying, meditating, going to the gym, being out in nature, like really focusing on my self care and focusing on myself. The moment that I turned my eyes from looking outward to see what everybody else was doing and just started focusing on my life, on my wants and my desires, I got out of what felt like the stuck place in the reinvention seasons so much quicker. So much quicker. So, I I want to encourage you to change your mindset if you feel like you're in a stuck place with this reinvention. And I want to encourage you to get creative, to get playful, to focus on yourself, and to really look more at the alignment that you're desiring in your life versus what things actually look like. Okay? See you tomorrow.